Okay, hello everyone. My name is Sarah, and I'm the Administrative Assistant for the Heritage Support Grants. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me. If you can hear me, click the hand symbol in the attendee section. It should be close to your name. I see that Jeannie can hear me, thank you. The attendee section is right below the dashboard and right above polls. So if you, let's see, I'll type into the chat box. But if you can't hear me, well, then you can't actually hear me, so that makes sense. Okay, so I just had a message that's in the chat section. If you can't figure out how to raise the hand, you can send me a question or answer in the chat. Okay, so I'm hoping that everyone can hear me and that they just don't know how to do the little hand symbol. Oh, I see that Ramona just clicked on it. So it's in the attendee section. It should say probably, it says like 7 out of 101 people. And then you click where it says names alphabetically. You click the little hand symbol to the left of that. Okay, so Kurt says he can hear me, and he got the hand symbol, but no. Okay. Yeah, just send me a message or anything. I don't know if Suzanne and Bill can hear me. Okay, I see that Bill can hear me. Okay, now we're just waiting on Suzanne, but let me just do another check while we're waiting. Everyone should see a black and white picture of a bank vault door. If you see something different, then can you raise your hand? I know I just asked you to raise your hand for something else, but if you can't see that, then raise your hand. Okay, so I think we're good. If you have any questions, once we get started, you just need to type those in the question window. I know some people found that window already, but it just says questions, and it should be below the handout section. And then we'll just answer all of those at the end of the webinar. So now I'm going to hand it over to Jamie to start the webinar.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We won't take up too much of your time. I know some of you are new to the process, and some of you are veteran reviewers for us. So we'll go through this. We'll cover some of the highlights. We'll make sure we have plenty of time for questions and let you know if there's any changes to our process for those of you who have done this before. So again, welcome to the overview of the Heritage Support Grants Program. Okay, I am Jamie Simic. I'm the fundraising educator for Local History Services. I am in charge of all the educational components of the fundraising curriculum that is part of this grant. With me, I also have Kurt Barsick, who is our grant manager, and Kurt's going to be walking us through the grant portal in just a little bit. And then you already met Sarah, who is the administrative assistant for the Heritage Support Grants Program. So just an overview about our Heritage Support applicants. This is the second cycle in this program, so we do have the benefit of knowing a little bit more than we did the first time we did this. We estimate that there may be up to 900 local history organizations in Indiana. Of course, those are all at various levels of development and in terms of being ready to apply for a grant. But we do think there are a lot of organizations out there that could access this. These organizations care for what we estimate to be more than 20 million objects. They really are the keepers of our state history. They're often small organizations, oftentimes rural, and in many occasions they are run by very small staff or completely by volunteers. And sometimes we find our organizations are a little overwhelmed by the cost of caring for their collections and sometimes their buildings, because some of them are in aging buildings. And we're also finding that they often have very little experience with fundraising. Some of them have done some grant writing, a lot of them have not. And so this process, and even honestly just the fact that it's an online grant application, are things that we work through and is part of the education process for them. A little bit of background about this grant program. This was made possible through a grant that IHS received from the Lilly Endowment. We do have $2.5 million to re-grant to these historical organizations over the course of 5 grant cycles. And as I mentioned, that education is my responsibility. It's a key component of this program. We obviously are in it to give out much needed funds to these organizations, but we also want to help teach them about fundraising to help with their capacity building. So we do offer a series of fundraising for local history workshops that are held throughout the calendar around the state. One of the other components that we'll talk about in just a little bit is our local history services coaches for our grant applicants. And then we do offer panel spots to some of our local history partners to make sure that that perspective of the local history organization is represented on our review panels. Right now, we have 2 grant levels. We have our project grants, which are our larger grants. They're $1,000 to $50,000. And then we also have our development grants, which are $500 to $999. The grant program that you are currently involved with and will be reviewing for is our project grant program, so you're going to be looking at those larger grant applications. We are, as I said, doing this over a course of 5 cycles, and those are 12-month grant cycles. We are making awards every 6 months through the summer of 2008. And we have up to, 18, not 8. And we do have up to $500,000 to award in each of those 5 cycles. In order to be eligible for this grant, we are asking that these organizations be incorporated in the state of Indiana and that they have their 501c3 nonprofit status. We ask that they have history as a significant component of their organizational mission, or they have a project that is very clearly history focused. And then we work closely with the American Alliance of Museums and the American Association for State and Local History, so we have used AAM's definition of a small museum, that being under $300,000 to set of an annual budget to set the threshold for our 3rd eligibility criteria. You'll notice the asterisk there about organizations operating under a larger parent organization, or if they have a different tax-exempt status. We are seeing some organizations come through the grant process through friends groups, or through perhaps foundations that are 501c3s that serve as kind of a fundraising arm of their organization. So those are our eligibility requirements. Our funding priorities for this grant, we like to say they're intentionally broad. We know that our organizations are in various stages. They have different needs, and so we want to make sure that we're addressing those needs with our broad funding priorities. So first of all, a lot of our projects are coming in under collection stewardship. Good collections management is definitely a priority of this grant. And for our purposes, we do include structures and landscapes under that collection stewardship so that we can help our organizations take care of some of their building issues. We're also trying to help these organizations build capacity. And so basically, to us, that is helping them. It's a grant that would enable them to do something they cannot currently do, or to do it better. Innovation, of course, that's kind of a buzzword right now. But in these in this particular grant process, it's not necessarily doing something cutting edge, but doing something that they maybe taking best practices and applying them to their own organization, or meeting standards in a way that's innovative given their limited resources. And then we also are encouraging collaboration, so really building those partnerships within their community. They only have to meet one of these funding priorities. They don't have to meet all four at the same time, although we do see applications that hit more than one of these at a time, which is great. Some funding exclusions. So in addition to indirect costs or overhead costs, we are not looking to fund right now rent or mortgage, utilities, insurance, salaries, wages, and benefits and/or benefits for permanent staff, and we're not doing endowment building for the organizations at this time. I want to touch really quick on the salaries, wages, and benefits. We have seen projects and anticipate seeing other new projects where they're looking to bring on contractors, consultants, interns, temporary employees to tackle some specific projects. So as long as those are contracts that don't extend beyond the 12-month grants period and are not being used as a way to fund permanent staff, those will be allowed. So I mentioned our project grants, and again, the range being $1,000 to $50,000. We do have a cash match requirement for these grants. Anything over $5,000, so any requests of $5,000 and up, they are going to need to demonstrate a 15% cash match. When you are reviewing the applications, you will see plans, where they are planning to get that cash match from. They do not have to actually have that cash match in hand until the end of the grant cycle. So they have the entire grant cycle to finish up with that 15% match for the fundraising. So this is our schedule for this particular grant, the summary of proposal, which serves as kind of an LOI for us and is the first step in letting us get a look into what their project is going to be. Those were due to us July 1st. The organizations that you're going to be working with or that you're going to be reviewing had to or received their invitation to submit on August 1st, and then of course their full proposal is going to be due on October 4th. We'll all convene in November. We will let them know by December 1st what the grant status is, and then their grant cycle begins January 2017. This is just a look at the development grants, just so you kind of know, especially if you have organizations that might be interested in this. The deadline for that is January 10th, and that is just the summary of proposal, or that first bit of overview that you're going to see once you get into the grant applications. There's no cash match required for that, and those will run in a cycle from February to the following January. So I mentioned our local history coaches. These are staff members from our local history department who work directly with our grantees. They are automatically assigned as soon as an organization registers, whether they submit, whether they even begin an application. Every organization that registers for our program online receives a coach. And that person is really their link or their bridge, their opportunity. They have opportunities to ask questions. The coaches can provide feedback throughout the grant proposal process. They can talk through projects. They can review drafts. And the reason that we are able to offer this obviously is because we are able to utilize your volunteer services as our grant review team, and so our staff does not have the coaches do not have a say in the grants, and so this is an opportunity for them to have honest conversations with their grantees. So our coaches obviously step back from the process once we turn it over to you to review. They will step back in after the review process is finished. They will provide feedback and comments to the organizations regardless of whether they get funding, and then for those that do go on with funded grants, they continue to serve as a resource throughout the project and reporting period. Okay, so the grant review process is up next. So you're going to see once you get into the system on the applications, you're going to see some organization details. This is just general information, contact information about the project team. We mentioned the summary of proposal, which really serves as kind of this overview or an executive summary of the project, and then we'll get into the full proposal. We also have an opportunity for our organizations to add some additional documents to their application. So you will be also seeing their annual operating budget. We also request that they send us their project budget. What will happen with these two budgets, one of them, the annual operating budget, we let them submit in whatever format they use. So it could be Excel, it could be a printout from QuickBooks, it could be, you know, a Word document in some cases, it just depends, but it's submitted how they use it as an organization. The project budget comes with a template that we have created that we ask them to use. So when you're looking at the project budgets for all of these organizations, they will all look roughly the same. They will all use the same template. We also ask them for a board list with affiliations. We do this because we are trying to emphasize to them the importance of involving their board in fundraising. So we want them to be very aware of who is on their board and their professional obligations, I guess. We'll get a confirmation of their 501c3 status, 501c3 status, and then additional supporting documents are going to look different for every organization. We may have job descriptions if they're going to be hiring personnel or bringing personnel on. We may have resumes. They may be estimates if they're working with a builder. It might be, you know, it just really depends. It could be a collections management policy. It might be a building report. Many, many different things. So those are going to look a little bit different. We get some before and after pictures sometimes. So that will be unique to each organization. And then we do give them the option of up to 2 letters of support from other organizations or individuals. Now, in terms of the evaluation criteria, once you are able to get onto the portal and see the individual sections for evaluation, these are going to be the areas that we're going to ask you to look at. So you're going to have a chance to look at, before I get into this, I do want to mention that we've changed this rubric just a little bit based on some feedback that we got from the first round. So we're hopeful that this is going to give you as reviewers the leeway you need, I guess, to make good decisions in terms of where you feel this grant should be. So we are going to be looking at institutional readiness, you know, and I tell the organizations that is, to sum that up, that's right place, right time, right organization. So that's just an indication to you as reviewers that it's a good time for them and they are the right ones to do this project. A lot about need, you know, we want the need to be very clear. We want you to have context. We want them to be, you know, very descriptive in the kind of the cause and effect of the need. We're going to break the project logic into 2 different sections in planned work and then intended results. We do use a logic model template. We don't require it, but we encourage it just to help the organizations get a little bit more familiar with the logic model. So we will be asking them to talk about what they want to, you know, what they want to accomplish, what kind of resources are going into it, what the activities are for their project, you know, what the products are going to look like on the other end, what's that going to mean, what difference is it going to make, and then kind of that long-term impact. Implementation is just their process and their plan. We want to make sure that it's well developed. We want to see what role their grant team is playing. We want to see some of those outcome indicators, you know, those milestones that they're going to be looking for to make sure they're on the right track. We talked a little bit already about the project budget. We're also going to be looking for them to talk about evaluation and sustainability. You know, a way for them to track whether or not they're staying online and staying, you know, with their implementation plan, a way for them to track their outcomes at the end. And then obviously we want to have we want them to demonstrate that it fits into their organization's long-term goals. And then we talked about attachments as well. So the scoring rubric, like I said, once you get on the grant portal, you're going to have a chance to take a look at this. There are 8 sections. We ask you to give them a score from 1 to 5. And it also is an opportunity in each of those sections for you to provide comments. We would encourage you to please, please, please include comments whenever you can as you're reviewing these, because we will take those comments and reflect them back to the organization. So the more comments and suggestions you can provide, the better we are able to educate our grant applicants. We will tally those scores, and then we will make sure that we rank those so that we can have a chance to discuss them during the panel. Excuse me. For the review panel, we expect up to 30 grant proposals. We plan to convene 3 different grant panels with 4 to 5 reviewers on each panel, which means that you should expect around 10 applications. And we will divide those by the total grant request. So if you are reviewing kind of our smaller range grants, you will be reviewing all of the smaller range grants, whereas if you're reviewing the $50,000, you're not also going to probably be reviewing, a $5,000 one. So we'll try to make them like in terms of their amounts. Just a real quick statement on conflict of interest. If you think that you might possibly have a conflict of interest with any of the organizations, once you have a chance to go in and see who they are, just notify Kurt, and we'll kind of take it on case by case. We've tried to, and we'll try to assign the organizations with being very cognizant of the fact that we would want to keep any of those conflicts of interest down. But if you happen to catch something and you want to recuse yourself from reviewing that particular application, that is not a problem at all. There's some examples there of possible conflict of interest. I'm sure you're probably all familiar with this area. So, if you worked as an advisor or a supporter, if it has a tie to your employer, if you have a family member that works there, obviously those are just examples, but just please let Kurt know if you have anything that you want to talk over in regards to conflict of interest. And do want to point you towards some additional resources that we have. Our Heritage Support Grants website is a great place to start in terms of getting information about the grants. So if you as a reviewer feel like you need to go look around a little bit more, we do have a section there of telling our grantees how to apply, a copy of the guidelines. We overview the review process. We list the upcoming workshops. And then the resources page is kind of a live document in terms of the fact that it changes. We're always adding new things to it. We have slides from some of our fundraising for local history workshops. We have a glossary of fundraising terms on there. We've also, after our last grant review process, we included a link to some common collections management terminology. So that's kind of an ongoing project to continue to update that resource page, and we certainly would be, we would love to take any recommendations you have for making that a better page for our organizations. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Kurt, and he is going to go over the online reviewer portal.
Hello everyone, and thank you again for participating as a reviewer in Cycle B of the Heritage Support Grants. I have met most of you before, but just a brief introduction. As Jamie said, my name is Kurt, and I'm the Grant Program Manager. One of the essential duties that I do here as far as you're concerned, as far as the reviewers are concerned, is that I am the technical liaison for the grant management portal. So if you run into any technical issues throughout this process, you can just email me directly and I can solve those for you. So first things first, I suggest you download Google Chrome. It was what the reviewer platform was built on, and it works most effectively accessed through Chrome. After this, Sarah has already assigned you usernames and passwords, so after this webinar, if you guys would try to log onto the system at indianahistory.flux.io, try to log in with the username and password that Sarah provided for you, and then we can solve any technical issues. You won't have any grants to review yet, but at least we'll know you'll be able to get into the system. Go ahead and click the next one. Sorry, I kind of skipped that. After logging into the portal, the menu on the left side of your screen will look like this. From the web page, you can access the assigned grants, edit and save your work to return to it later, submit the review, and access past reviews you have submitted. You can access new reviews by simply clicking the New Reviews button. Again, the review can be edited and saved and will remain under this tab until it is submitted. After clicking New Reviews, simply click the grant you wish to review. All assigned reviews will be accessible through the New Reviews button. Also, until you have submitted your review, you are free to change your scores and comments. And if you accidentally hit submit, just shoot me an email. I can back it out of the system for you, and you can go ahead and edit anything that you want to. After selecting a grant to review, a pop-up window will appear on your screen, and you will be able to see the grant application and the reviewer rubric side by side. If you prefer a paper copy, you can also print the grant application from this screen. To score each category, simply use the drop-down tool as shown in the picture and leave a comment in the space below. Each score and comment section are required fields. You will need to enter some text into the fields before you can save the review. Don't worry, as I said, you can always go back and edit the review, and if you accidentally hit submit, shoot me an email. I'll back out of the system for you. Grantees are required to submit additional documents to further enhance their application. We strongly suggest that you look at these documents because, as I said, they've been instructed to submit them to enhance their application, and there might be some information that could affect your scoring on that particular grant. When you have completed the review or have reached a stopping point and want to come back later, click the green Save button. If you have unsaved changes when you try to close the review, you will see this notice. Simply click Cancel and then click Save. Once you have finished the review, click the red Submit button. Unfortunately, in the reviewer portal, you do not have the ability to print a copy of your review for your records. However, to go ahead and bypass this feature, we're going to have Sarah create PDFs once you submit your review, and she will email you a PDF copy. After submitting a review, you can access the read-only version by clicking the Submitted Reviews tab. At this time, you will also be able to see reviews submitted by other reviewers for the same grant application in which you were assigned. This concludes the webinar on the Indiana Historical Society's Heritage Support Grants Reviewer Portal. Sarah has been monitoring the questions submitted throughout the presentation, and we will read them now. And she's just informed me that there are no questions, so we'll give maybe a few seconds for some additional questions to come in. And then if not, I'm looking forward to working with all of you, and I will see you in early November. Thank you again.
So if you have any questions, you can just type them into the questions pane or email Kurt if you have any, or me if you have any further questions. We're just going to give everyone just a couple seconds if you're typing something in. This webinar was recorded, so after the webinar is over, I'll be sending an email out to everyone with a link to the recorded webinar and a PDF copy of the PowerPoint, so you can have that later. Bill just asked when we will receive the application.
So the applications are due from grantees on October 4th. They will be assigned and received later that week or early the next week. So we kind of, our target is the 7th, and we plan on hitting that. So expect the review or expect the applications to be available by the 7th.
And I'll be sending out an email to everyone when those are ready for you to review. Bill wants to know, will the reviewers be reviewing at home or at IHS?
As far as, so I'm not quite sure. So you'll be able to access all of the applications remotely and the reviewer panel remotely to review. If you, for whatever reason, cannot travel to IHS to participate in the review panel, we can set up a call, and we'll set up a teleconference call. But if it's at all possible that you can make it, we find that it works better if we have all the reviewers in the same room.
Sarah will communicate to you a deadline by which we'd like to receive all of the scores. And then we have taken into account everyone filled out an availability or indicated their availability, for one of 3 dates in November to convene here at IHS. So we will be working with you to give you your on-site date to be for the convening, and we'll plan to spend a day just in discussion about those grant applications. But you will have had an opportunity to review all of them and assign your score via the online portal ahead of time.
And so you understand the time commitment. I know that Sarah has conveyed this to you via email. But in the last cycle, the review panels lasted from roughly 10 a.m. till about 2:30. I know on one of the days we're asking you to get here a little bit early at 9:30 a.m. because we have a conflict with the room that we would like to use. So one of the days we'll ask you all to get here by 9:30, but on the other days it's going to be from about 10 till roughly 2:30.
Does anyone else have any questions? I don't see any other ones, but again, like I said, you can email Kurt, me, or Jamie with any further questions, and I will be getting in contact with you later today with a copy of the webinar. So that concludes our Heritage Support Grant Reviewer webinar. Thank you all so much for attending, and have a great day.